This is lesson 5.8a, equations with fractions and decimals. We're going to work these the same way we work equations that have integers that we've been working so far. We're just going to use the inverse operation to solve. We're going to do whatever is the opposite. And there's a special case. Sometimes you'll have a fraction multiplied by a variable, and we can undo that multiplying a fraction by multiplying its inverse. So it's still opposites, but not always the opposite operation. For example 1, we're going to solve each one-step equation. We're going to start with this problem, y minus 17.5 equal 11. And our goal with any equation is to get the variable by itself. Currently, we have this y we want to get by itself, and there's minus 17.5 on the same side. So we're going to add 17.5 to both sides of this equation. When we do that, we get y by itself on the left side and 28.5 on the right side, and we're finished. We have solved this equation. Next, problem B. We have x plus 1/9 equal negative 4/9. We want to get x by itself, so we're going to get rid of this positive 1/9 by subtracting 1/9 from both sides of this equation. They'll cancel on the left side and we just get x. And on the right side, we may have to think just a moment. These fractions both have a common denominator of 9, so we can keep the denominator 9, and we say, okay, negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. And so we've got our equation, the solution to our equation, x equal negative 5/9. Our next equation, 3/5 w equal 3/16. This one could be solved a couple of different ways. I'm going to go ahead and note that we could solve by dividing 3/5 on both sides, or we could multiply by the reciprocal, which is 5/3. It's the flipped fraction. So you have a couple options here. Honestly, it's easier to just multiply by the reciprocal, so that's what we're going to do here. Let's multiply by the flipped fraction of 3/5, which is 5/3. What we do to one side, we'll do to the other. Of course, when you multiply by the reciprocal, here's what happens. The 5s will cross cancel. They'll both divide by 5, so that would be 1. The 3s will cross cancel. They'll both divide by 3, so that would be 1. And we just get w by itself on the left side. On the right side, I could do some cross canceling before I multiply, or I could just go ahead and multiply. Many of you prefer to multiply, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here. 3 times 5 is 15. 16 times 3 is 48. But since we did not cross cancel, we do have some simplifying to do. Both 15 and 48 will reduce. They'll both divide by 5. So we get that w is equal to 15 divided by 5, which is 3, and 48 divided by 5, which is 16, and we are done with this problem. Example 2, now we're going to solve some two-step equations. Just like the one-step equations, these work just like the equations that have integers instead of fractions and decimals. So the first one, we have 5w plus 2.7 equal 12.8. We want to get w by itself. So first of all, let's box in our w term. We'll get rid of 2.7 by subtracting 2.7 from both sides of the equation. We get 5w on the left side equal 10.1 on the right side. And now we want to get rid of the 5 that's multiplied by w. So we'll divide both sides by 5. We get w on the left side equal 2.02 on the right side. And we're done with this equation. Okay, our last equation. This one has fractions. And at first glance, fractions may look like a lot of work. But we could start by getting them into a form that would be easier to work with, which would be improper fractions. So I'm going to use around the world, and I'm going to say negative 3 1/3. I say 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. I've got a negative sign, so I have negative 10/3, r, plus 1/6 equal. And then around the world, 6 times 40 is 240, plus 1 is 241. And we keep our denominator 6. And then we just start solving this like we would any equation. We're going to box in our r term. I'm going to get rid of 1/6 by subtracting 1/6 from both sides of the equation. I end up with negative 10/3 r equal. In this problem, we happen to have a common denominator 6, which makes this a little easier. And the numerator is 241 minus 1 is 240. Now, I can actually simplify this a little bit because 240 divided by 6 is just 40. Okay, and now we are ready to solve for r. So I could undo this negative 10/3 times r by multiplying by the reciprocal, negative 3/10. They'll cross cancel on the left, and we'll get r. On the right, I could rewrite this. I could say that's 40 over 1 times negative 3 over 10. We get negative 120 over 10, which does reduce to negative 12. And we're done with our review of solving equations, and in this case we've used fractions and decimals.